Why is it that the American dream seems further away with every passing year? And the wealth gap continues to widen. Yet there are immigrants who come to America and somehow break through to great success. Starting with nothing or very little, they achieve amazing success. And they're not hindered by racism or class-based barriers. Let's just take two fairly recent historic examples: the diaspora of Nigerians coming to America and the Vietnamese who came to America after the fall of Saigon. Both groups would on the surface appear disadvantaged in their new land because of education, race, and cultural barriers. Yet both have thrived. Nigerian Americans excel in education, the arts, science, and finance. Similarly, the Vietnamese boat people have enjoyed great success in their new homeland despite arriving with very little after leaving their lives behind in distress. Those growing up in the land of opportunity seem to struggle by comparison, and the rich keep getting richer while the middle class seems to be shrinking. Are there success principles that are being missed? Why is it that foreign-born tend to outperform those born here? Maybe they're missing the opportunity or they take it too much for granted. Of course there are success principles, but the world would tell you that life is simply unfair. And this has led to a rise in socialism fantasies, particularly among people, young people. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, I'm going to share 5 free market principles for economic justice that we can implement to make economic opportunity more available for everyone. Then I'll review President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill to see whether it's taken us the right or the wrong direction in this regard. We'll wrap up with a list of opportunities made available by the bill. Principle number 1, it has to do with money. Now, we cover this all the time. It's also on our Pirate Money radio program. Money is defined by its functions. Number 1, it's a unit of account. It means you can measure things in terms of dollars. Number 2, it's a means of exchange. I can sell you my labor in exchange for dollars, and then I can pay my rent with it. And number 3, it's supposed to be a store of value. Now, the American dollar's done really well with number 1 and number 2. You can go anywhere in the world and you can price things in dollars. And most people anywhere in the world will take dollars for their goods and services. But the dollar's lost 90% of its value in terms of purchasing power since Nixon ended gold convertibility in 1971. This has led to a whole host of economic and social ills, including the financialization of our economy. Most of America has suffered under inflation, but Wall Street and Washington and parts of Silicon Valley, they've profited from it. This has started a vicious cycle of ever-increasing government attempting to stop a problem of its own making. As the wealth gap widens, there are greater calls for a larger government and increased taxation to pay for anti-poverty programs. And those anti-poverty programs have been attracting a lot of people coming to this country. I just got a chart sent to me by Dave Bratt, Dr. David Bratt of Liberty University, former congressman, and he shows, according to CIS.org, that the foreign-born numbers of Americans was 4.7% in 1971, down from a peak of 14.7% in 1910, down to 4.7%. But when we left the gold standard and started all these warfare on poverty and social programs and so forth, it exploded. So that the projection is foreign-born workers today about 16% and as high as 23% by the year 2040. Now that's an unintended consequence, or maybe it was an intended consequence, but it's causing some social problems that we're suffering through. You know, we have excessive government spending from these social welfare programs, and that simply makes the problem worse because it makes inflation worse. And when inflation's bad, you have more poverty. So how do you stop that vicious cycle? You allow people to opt out from the craziness. What if money could be a great unit of account, an excellent means of exchange, and a good store of value? That's what we call pirate money, and it's coming to a state near you. Transactional gold and silver, where you can buy, store, and spend gold and silver with a debit card. And it's been made legal tender in 5 states so far: Arkansas, Florida, Louisiana, Texas, and Missouri. You can see if it's coming to your state by checking out our website, transactionalgold.com. We believe this will be the engine of economic justice as it catches on. And there's something you can do personally to benefit. Now that the legislation is in place, we can start the implementation phase. I expect that this will take America by storm. Don't miss it. The second free market principle is something we need to work on. When I graduated from college, there were incredible opportunities to invest in American startups like Apple and Microsoft. If you put $1,000 in each of those companies when we launched 40 years ago, you would have close to $10 million today. After those two, we've also had Google, Amazon, Meta, and so many other terrific companies become available as public companies where you can invest in the stock market. Unfortunately, the number of public companies has been declining. And some of the best ideas go public only after the cream is gone. Take Uber, for example. It's a terrific idea. It's better than a taxi. You know when it's coming, how much it will cost, track your ride, you know who's picking you up. If you leave something behind, you can retrieve it. You can give a star rating and receive a star rating. You have a chance to be a driver. But when it went public, if you bought it at the initial public offering, you lost money for at least 2 years after you bought the stock. Why? Because all the cream was gone. They brought it public at a very high price. Now, don't get me wrong. There's still potential for owning stocks and making money, but the excitement is diminished. Most people now buy an index fund, and while those have done well, they don't excite new investors. One solution, our solution, we want to give regular people access to the unicorns, those great private opportunities again. What if average investors were allowed to own shares in private equity? Imagine taking $1,000 and putting it in the next Apple before it went public. Right now, under securities laws, those opportunities are available only to the wealthy. But why shouldn't you be able to buy in early? The answer you will hear is risk. But they'll let you gamble in Vegas, and they'll let you buy lottery tickets. We would propose that as long as you're risking only a small portion of your portfolio, and if you have the assistance of a professional advisor, you ought to be able to invest in private equity. This would sort of be like advanced crowdfunding. It should be fair if the fees are limited. Now, what we're doing to make this happen is building up the NSIC, the National Security Investment Consultant Institute. This is our plan to help investors navigate the economic challenges by working with professional advisors dedicated to liberty, security, and values. You can learn more at nsic.org. It is one of our favorite economic war room projects, and it's one of the things that we're doing to help bring economic justice. Now, we have a third solution and a fourth and a fifth. We'll have to cover those after the break. But what if we reduced regulation? What if I told you your income could exceed $300,000 a year? We'll cover this and more right after this break. In uncertain times, finding stability in the economy can feel challenging. But what if you could navigate economic volatility while honoring your biblical values? At Timothy Plan, they believe this balance is possible. Timothy Plan filters its volatility-weighted ETFs and family of mutual funds through a biblical pro-life and pro-family lens, so you can see competitive returns and moral responsibility, helping you to weather the economic storms. With Timothy Plan, align your investments with your values while adapting to our ever-changing culture. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has been recognized leader in biblically responsible investing. Timothy Plan, your bridge between faith, finances, and the future. Visit timothyplan.com or call 1-800-TIM-PLAN or 1-800-846-7526. Investing includes risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com.
I'm outside Babe's, which I'm told is the quintessential chicken restaurant here in Roanoke, Texas. Let's go and see if we can buy the food in here, chicken with gold.
This is gonna be the fried chicken.
This is unbelievable. How am I going to fit all this in? I seriously actually don't know how to begin with this. This is so overwhelming. Do you think I can pay with gold?
I don't know. You may have to ask the cashier. I don't handle it.
Can I pay with gold? But actually, you said I could pay with this? Okay, I'm gonna pay with this, but I'm gonna pay with gold. So look at the price of gold going up. That's pretty cool, yeah? Right, this is Babes, yeah? How much gold did I pay? Gold, how many grams?
0.26.
0.26, quarter of a gram of gold. How about that?
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool, yeah. Success! Bought with gold, paid with glint.
Right before the break, we talked about two very important initiatives that we have in the economic war room. The first one was real money, transactional gold and silver. The second was the NSIC Institute that would allow you to invest in up-and-coming companies and not just those that have already had the cream taken away. Now, our third solution for economic justice is reducing regulation, and this has incredible promise, especially under a favorable Trump administration. In the first Trump term, regulations grew at the slowest pace in decades, and that matters big time. Regulations drain the economy and they crush your income. Reason Magazine published a study 12 years ago that showed that federal regulations made each of us 75% poorer. Our economy then was just $16 trillion. And if regulations had been held at the level of 60 years earlier, rather than expanding every year, the average American salary would have been $330,000, not just the $53,000 it was in 2009 or the $64,000 it is today. I think it's safe to say that some of those regulations were sensible, so you might not get the whole $330,000. But it's also safe to say that many of those regulations are nonsense. Without those, you'd be earning substantially more than you're earning right now. And when we lower the regulatory burden, we will see major progress. Think of all the opportunities for entrepreneurship, invention, and creativity. The good news is that President Trump has made it a policy to remove 10 regulations if you want to add one. This should help increase economic justice. Think of all the rules that prevent small business from winning, but aid big business. President Trump has already rolled back mandates on electric cars and incandescent lighting. He believes in free markets, and America is now unleashed. This is one of the first executive orders, unleashing prosperity through deregulation. Now, there are other things that we can talk about. We've covered the three big ones, but what we have, number 4, is also important, and that is education. Why are we cramming kids like cattle into classrooms based on age? In the early days, once you mastered a subject, you allowed kids to advance. It was based on levels rather than the year they were born. If you want more brilliant minds like the fictional Doogie Howser, maybe you change the system with rewards and opportunities. Why are we teaching to a test? Look, we could do a 12-part series on education reform and barely scratch the surface. But if we could help people have not just outcome-based education, but not dumbing down the kids to answer test questions. American students are bright, but we've let teachers, unions, and special interests take control with layers of unnecessary administration. Why don't we start training kids with opportunity, and you'll see creativity emerge. Less government, but more people-driven. Find the bent, the natural bent of the child, and help them. Now, I include education reform on our list of things to bring economic justice because we've essentially been treated like children in lab experiments. You know, there's this lab experiment where psychologists train monkeys to never leave the barrel by squirting them with water whenever they attempt to climb out. Over time, every one of the monkeys is scared to try. And if you put a new monkey in there, all the other monkeys will say, don't try it, we'll get squirted with water. That's why we have so few Elon Musks emerging. The teachers' unions and the education system is basically trying to cram people into the same disciplines, the same approach, and we're having lousy outcomes. Now, the final principle I'm going to list today on economic justice is to stop treating our own people as consumers only. You know, our whole system is designed on making Americans consumers. We've become the buyers, and everything in our economy seems to be based on that. We're people. We're not mindless shoppers of goods and services. Even the whole trade policy is based on the notion that, well, foreign governments will sell their goods and services into us. Trump is disrupting that, by the way. You know, when he puts tariffs on, oh my gosh, it's going to make things more expensive. No, it's actually going to make things more level and more even. We ought to be producers, not just consumers. So we're going to need an attitude change on this one. Do we really need all the stuff? Clean out a closet or go to that storage area that you've rented to see what I'm talking about. we can and should be savers and investors. When you go through stuff and you say, why do I have this junk? Wouldn't you rather have that in gold or silver or stocks in your portfolio? Why would you spend all that money now when you could be investing it in the future? And you know, the economy would not collapse if we had this mindset shift, at least over time. There are plenty of ways to explore and invest that would bring new dynamics. If we had more investment capital, we'd do amazing things with it. Or perhaps we could solve poverty through personal generosity. Maybe you don't need that stuff. Maybe you could give to people who are in need, like from the floods in Texas, or people entering America that need help, or poverty. Generous giving is so much better than being a blind consumer. It would help more people. It would grow our economy faster. We don't need to have a gun pointed in our head and force us to give the socialist tendencies or higher taxes. The path to economic justice does not travel through consumerism. Use your money to build, to dream, and to share your resources with those in need. Government is not the solution to this problem. It is the problem, creating poverty while claiming to try to solve it. I know, this is sort of a different episode because it's a mix of action and attitude to create a solution. But I know it will work, and you will likely know it as well. And these solutions won't be easy because there's a whole system that's developed to profit from inflation, hoarding investment ideas, ratcheting up regulations, keeping people dumb and hooked on consumption, and making them pay more in taxes. This is going to require some drastic changes. The good news, changes are being made right now. The one big, beautiful bill just passed. It's got a lot of issues, but there's some embers of liberty and promises kept that give me hope. Let's start with how this bill can address the issue of economic justice. Heritage Foundation, the House Ways and Means Committee, did a great job summarizing the OBBB, which is the one big, beautiful bill. We're going to dive into a summary and discuss some of the things that you can apply in your own situation. But before we do that, I want to dispel some myths. The bill will not cost what the Congressional Budget Office is projecting or claiming. CBO is Congressional Budget Office, and our friend Rod Martin explained in a recent Substack that the CBO has been wrong every time they've scored bills by Republicans, especially, because they use something called static scoring rather than dynamic scoring. So do you think this is going to hurt you? That's what the media is telling you. Inflation's going to go through the roof. The deficit's going to go through the roof. Is that true? I don't think it is. Rod Martin doesn't think it is. We're going to cover all of this when we return from a break and then show you some opportunities that you have in the one big, beautiful bill. We'll be right back.
I'm Kevin Sorbo. When you spend money, you consider who you're buying from and the causes they support. If you don't, then you're likely supporting companies that are trying to destroy our country and take away our freedoms. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They're a cell phone company and a good one. They offer nationwide coverage on the best 4G and 5G networks along with 100% US-based customer support. But here's the deal. Patriot Mobile's mission has nothing to do with cell phones. They carry out their mission by giving back millions of dollars every year to Christian conservative causes that are actively engaged in the fight to save America. Voting is no longer enough to beat the woke. We have to band together, support like-minded companies, and vote with our dollars. That's how we win. Stop supporting companies that want to destroy America and join Patriot Mobile today by visiting patriotmobile.com or call 972-PATRIOT.
Gold holds its value far better than the US dollar. Let's see what happens when I go in this sweet shop and pay with gold. Can I pay with gold?
I mean, you can wait, find out how much it costs.
Do you know what? Basically, do you know why I'm even using gold?
I do not.
It holds its value over time, but it's a bit difficult to spend, isn't it? Do you take this?
Yes.
That's MasterCard. Yeah, but this is. I'm actually going to pay with gold, believe it or not, using this. Using this. That's my MasterCard, and it's linked to my gold wallet. So let's just watch that. Authorizing. Yeah, add a tip.
Thank you.
So this is your store?
Yes, sir.
And how much gold did I pay?
0.0 2243 grams.
Yeah, success. Bought with gold, paid with glitz.
You've probably heard a lot about the One Big Beautiful Bill that was signed into law on the 4th of July, our 249th anniversary as a nation. It's 940 pages thick. Just to give you a context, this is a book that is, I think, 890 pages, so it's thicker than this in one big bill. As a general rule, I hate massive pieces of legislation. But this is what President Trump wanted to do, because he wanted to get it all, his promises in, the tax breaks insured and everything else, and they had to pass it through reconciliation. That's a technique in the Senate where they can avoid the filibuster. But there's a lot of talk about how it's going to raise our deficits, how it's going to hurt you as a consumer, and all of these things. So I looked at a Substack posted by our friend in the Economic War Room, Rod Martin, who he wrote The Unreported Economic Boom and Why Elon Musk, as bright as he is wrong about the big, beautiful bill. Now, here's the bad. The bad is it's big. It's enormous. But it's really not going to cause the problems that they say. Rod did a deep dive into it, and he found that, yes, the Congressional Budget Office says it's going to add $3 or $4 trillion to our debt. But that's based on static scoring, meaning that no economic impacts are gauged in it. So all that they look at is it lowers taxes, and therefore the government has less revenue. But we know that every time you lower taxes, the government actually gets more revenue, especially when you lower them in the ways that this bill does. And so he pointed out every time that they say it's going to raise our debt, it actually can lower it because it increases revenues. The key is, what do we do with spending after this? Do we grow the government more, or do we stop the government growth? So he points out that the Atlanta Fed's GDP Now model is projecting Q2 growth at 4.6% annualized. Capital investment jumped from 5.1% to 8.8%, a massive spike in business confidence, and consumer spending up 3.8% to 4.6%. Now, I like the growth of the investment side more than the consumer side, but bottom line is, he wrote, even at 2.7% growth, which is the low end of what Trump is carefully setting up, a big improvement over Obama and Biden's growth years, the budget deficits projected by the One Big Beautiful Bill's critics will turn into budget surpluses somewhere between $1 to $2 trillion, completely eliminating the deficit and beginning to pay down the debt. That's only true if Congress can hold the line, but it could be true. That's the key. And Rod Martin goes on and talks about the deficit, he talks about the help that it brings, and then he points out where the Congressional Budget Office was wrong. They said Obamacare, up to 25 million people will enroll in Obamacare plans, and yet they only had 12 million people. That was the reality. On deficit spending, they projected in 2023, they were totally wrong. And the Inflation Reduction Act, they said there'd be $58.1 billion in savings, but there was actually $428 billion in new deficits. This is a Democrat, deep state-controlled Congressional Budget Office. So he's right about this. I think he's right. Here's another myth. You heard it wrong. Top White House official addresses claims there's pork in the BBB. Well, the reality of it is, as Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller came out and said, what they call pork is actually promises that the administration made, President Trump made on the campaign trail, that people voted for, like no tax on tips. Is that pork, or is that keeping his promise? I tend to believe it's keeping promise. Let's walk through some other aspects of this. Here is the recap from Heritage Foundation and Ways and Means. It says the typical family will get up to $10,900 in additional take-home pay because this bill passed. That's phenomenal. Workers will see increased wages up to $7,200. Households earning less than $100,000 get a 12% tax cut compared to today. And up to 7.2 million jobs will be protected and created, and 1 million new jobs annually by small businesses. No tax on tips, overtime pay, car loan interest, and tax relief for seniors will put more money annually in Americans' pockets. $1,300 per tipped worker specifically, and $1,400 for hourly workers. This is a benefit. Locks in and further boosts the doubled standard deduction, increasing it to $31,500 for family. Expands 529 education savings accounts and education freedom. That's what we were talking about. We've got to improve education. Supports working families and small businesses by expanding access to the child care credit and making permanent the paid leave tax credit. Enhances the adoption tax credit. You know what the best way to get immigrants into the United States is? Bring them into the American family where they can be taught the principles of America. They can understand Western civilization. They can grow up with a loving family. Those are the best immigrants. We need to bring more of those here. Start building financial security for America's children at birth with the creation of a new Trump savings account. Imagine this. Pretty soon, every newborn American will be the proud owner of their very own Trump account. President Trump's sprawling tax law creates a new tax advantage investment account pre-funded with $1,000 for each child born from the beginning of 2025 through the end of 2028. It's a great time to have children, and we need more children demographically. You know, I'm not quoting here some conservative website. I'm quoting finance.yahoo.com. It's about financial experts. Can you imagine that? You're having a baby and you get $1,000 set aside to invest in America, not to spend. And there's restrictions on it, so it has to remain invested for the long term. I think it's fantastic. America as a whole is going to benefit. The wokes and the elites and the political class will be held accountable. It's going to eliminate these Green New Deal subsidies that have been a waste of money. It's going to put America first. It's going to make permanent pro-worker tax relief. It's going to increase and support American workers with tax hikes, eliminating tax hikes on American workers. And it's going to put in place a pro-America approach. Like you can deduct the interest if you buy a car if it's made in America by American workers. There's a lot of beautiful things in this one big beautiful bill. And I think that they line up with the 5 principles I laid out earlier in this show. This is an opportunity for America to focus on the future, not on the past, to focus not on solving the poverty problem by giving people money, but by giving people opportunity. It's a chance to put America first in a lot of ways and then bring in immigration that wants to be American and not just show up and get our social welfare benefits. And that's a big distinction. Now, I'm going to cover all of this in the free economic battle plan. You can get a copy at economicwarroom.com. Remember, what we see as a marketplace, our enemies view as a battle space. This is Kevin Freeman from the Economic War Room.